Tonight, we journey to the islands where the divine and earthly realms have always touched. This is Japan. A land where every mountain holds a spirit, every river carries the voice of ancient gods, every cherry blossom that falls whispers secrets of the kami. Before you settle into this voyage through sacred Japan, take a moment to like this video if these mystical journeys bring you peace. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from tonight. Tell me what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights around you as the ancient Japanese would have done in their sacred temples. Perhaps light a candle or some gentle incense. Incense was always precious in Japanese ritual. The smoke carries prayers upward to the kami spirits. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine ancient Japan. Picture what it must have been like to live in a world where the boundary between spirit and matter was as thin as morning mist over a mountain lake. Every rock could house a kami. Every ancient tree might speak if you knew how to listen. The Japanese understood something profound about the nature of the sacred. They knew that divinity was not distant or separate from daily life. The kami spirits lived among them. They dwelled in the mountains that rose from their rice fields. They flowed in the streams that watered their gardens. They danced in the cherry blossoms that marked the turning of each year. This understanding created a civilization unlike any other. Japan became a land where reverence was woven into the fabric of existence, where respect for natural forces shaped every aspect of culture, where the smallest shrine by a country path might house a spirit as ancient and powerful as those worshipped in the greatest temples. The word kami itself reveals this deep wisdom. Kami can mean god or spirit or divine force, but it also means the mysterious energy that makes something sacred, the power that transforms an ordinary place into holy ground, the presence that turns a simple rock into an altar where prayers are answered. The kami were not distant creators ruling from heavenly thrones. They were neighbors. They were the spirits who made the rice grow in flooded fields. They were the forces that brought the spring rains right on schedule. They were the guardians who protected villages from earthquakes and storms. Every region of Japan had its own kami. Every mountain peak housed a divine presence. Mount Fuji held within its perfect cone the spirit of the fire goddess Konohana Sakuya Haimi. Mount Takama was home to the thunder god Raijin. The sacred peaks of Kumano sheltered an entire pantheon of forest spirits and mountain deities. The rivers too were alive with divine consciousness. The Sumida River carried the prayers of Tokyo toward the sea. The sacred Katsura River bore the offerings of Kyoto pilgrims downstream to waiting kami. Every stream that tumbled from mountain heights to ocean shore was a pathway of divine communication. The forests of Japan pulsed with kami presence. Ancient cedars that had stood for 1,000 years were not merely trees but living temples. Their branches reached toward heaven like arms raised in eternal prayer. Their roots extended deep into sacred earth, connecting the visible world to the hidden realm of spirits. Bamboo groves whispered with voices of nature spirits. When wind moved through these green corridors, it carried messages between earth and sky. The rustling sound was kami language, the communication system that connected all living things in a web of sacred relationship. The seasons themselves were manifestations of divine energy. Spring arrived when the kami of renewal awakened from winter sleep. The cherry blossoms burst into bloom because flower spirits danced through the trees, painting branches with petals of pink and white. Summer brought the kami of growth and abundance. Rice fields turned emerald green under their nurturing attention. Gardens exploded with life as plant spirits worked in harmony with human cultivation. Autumn was the season when harvest kami gathered the fruits of the year. The maple leaves turned red and gold because forest spirits painted them with colors of gratitude. Every falling leaf carried a prayer of thanksgiving to the earth. Winter came when the mountain kami pulled white blankets of snow across the landscape. This was not death, but rest. The spirits of growth withdrew into sacred mountains to renew their strength for the coming spring. The Japanese built their lives around these rhythms of divine energy. They planted rice when the water kami sang through irrigation channels. They celebrated festivals when seasonal spirits reached the peak of their power. They constructed their homes to harmonize with the flow of natural forces. Villages were positioned where beneficial kami gathered. Homes faced directions that honored the spirits of compass points. Gardens were designed as meeting places where human and divine consciousness could commune in beauty and peace. The architecture itself reflected this understanding of sacred presence everywhere. Traditional Japanese buildings used natural materials that still carried the spirits of their origins. Wooden beams remembered the trees they came from. Clay tiles held the memory of earth from which they were shaped. Sliding doors and paper screens created spaces that flowed like water. Rooms could be reconfigured to match the changing seasons. The boundaries between inside and outside remained fluid, allowing kami to move freely through human dwellings. The tea ceremony became a ritual of communion with the spirits present in every element. Water carried mountain kami down from sacred peaks. Tea leaves held the essence of plant spirits who had absorbed sunlight and rain. The ceramic bowls bore the artistic souls of their creators merged with earth spirits from which clay was formed. Even the simplest daily activities became opportunities for sacred encounter. Preparing food honored the plant and animal spirits who had given their lives for nourishment. Tending gardens was collaboration between human intention and the kami who governed growth and flowering. Walking through the countryside meant moving through a landscape alive with divine presence. Every stone by the roadside might house a helpful spirit. Every crossroads was protected by guardian kami who watched over travelers. Every bridge crossed not just water, but the boundary between different realms of spiritual energy. The mountains called most powerfully to those who sought direct encounter with the sacred. Japan's peaks rose like stairways to heaven. Their slopes were paths of pilgrimage that led seekers higher into rarefied realms where human and divine consciousness could meet without the veils of ordinary experience. Mountain pilgrimage became the most direct path to divine encounter. Those who climbed sacred peaks left behind the concerns of daily life with every step upward. The higher they climbed, the thinner became the barriers between earth and heaven. At mountain shrines built on the most sacred spots, pilgrims offered their prayers directly to the kami of the peaks. These mountain spirits were ancient beyond human memory. They had watched over the islands since the first volcanic eruptions raised the land from beneath Pacific waters. As we prepare to explore the sacred geography of Japan, as we prepare to meet the kami who have guided and protected this island realm for countless generations, let yourself settle into the peaceful awareness of entering sacred space. These mountains we will climb are not distant or foreign. They are the peaks of the soul where human consciousness meets divine presence. The spirits we will encounter are not alien beings, but aspects of the sacred energy that flows through all existence. The mist begins to rise from mountain valleys as our journey deepens. Somewhere in that sacred haze, the sun goddess Amaterasu is preparing to share her light with a world that has long awaited her radiance. From the eastern peaks of sacred Japan, Amaterasu emerges. She is the sun goddess, the radiant mother of light who brings each dawn to the world. Her presence transforms the mountain mists into veils of gold and silver. Every ray of sunlight carries her blessing to the earth below. Amaterasu approaches not with the harsh blaze of desert suns, but with the gentle radiance of Japanese mornings. Her light filters through cherry blossoms like liquid pearls. It dances on the surface of temple ponds where sacred koi swim in circles of meditation. The goddess moves across the sky with grace that has inspired poets for thousands of years. Amaterasu's journey from horizon to horizon marks not just the passage of hours, but the daily renewal of divine promise. Each sunrise is her gift to a world that depends on her luminous presence. Her hair flows behind her like streams of living sunlight, golden threads that catch and hold the essence of celestial fire. These radiant tresses move with their own gentle rhythm, stirred by breezes that blow only in the heavenly realm where sun spirits dwell. Amaterasu's eyes hold depths of golden warmth that see into every corner of the Japanese islands. Nothing escapes her gentle gaze. She watches over rice farmers as they tend their flooded fields. She blesses children as they play beneath flowering trees. She guards lovers who meet in moonlit gardens. The robe that flows around the sun goddess shimmers with colors that have no earthly names, fabrics woven from condensed sunbeams and morning mist. The garment changes hue with the changing light, reflecting the infinite beauty that consciousness can achieve when it learns to embody divine radiance. Amaterasu's voice carries the music of spheres made manifest in sound that mortal ears can comprehend. When she speaks, it is with the gentle authority of one whose words have the power to make flowers bloom, snow melt, and hearts open to receive the light of divine love. The mirror that Amaterasu carries is one of the 3 sacred treasures of Japan. This mirror does not reflect external appearances, but reveals the true nature of whatever looks into its polished surface. To gaze into Amaterasu's mirror is to see one's own divine essence, the inner light that connects every soul to the cosmic radiance of the sun goddess. The jewels that adorn Amaterasu's throat and wrists are not ornaments, but crystallized droplets of pure light. Each gem contains the essence of a perfect moment, the sparkle of sunlight on water, the gleam of dew on a spider's web, the flash of recognition when 2 hearts meet in perfect understanding. Amaterasu's birth from the left eye of the creator god Izanagi reveals the profound truth that light emerges from focused divine vision. When consciousness learns to see with perfect clarity, it naturally generates the radiance that illuminates all existence. The sun goddess represents the enlightened awareness that brings warmth and clarity to every situation. The sacred dance that Amaterasu performs across the heavens follows rhythms older than human memory. Her movements mark the progression of seasons, the cycles of growth and rest that govern all life on the Japanese islands. Farmers plant their rice when the sun goddess reaches certain points in her celestial choreography. The light that streams from Amaterasu nourishes not just physical plants, but the spiritual growth of human consciousness. Her rays carry frequencies of divine energy that awaken dormant capacities in those who learn to receive her illumination with proper reverence and attention. Mount Fuji serves as Amaterasu's earthly throne when she wishes to rest from her celestial journeys. The sacred mountain's perfect cone creates a focal point where solar energy can be concentrated and distributed throughout the islands. Pilgrims who climb Fuji's slopes often report encounters with radiant beings of light. The shrines dedicated to Amaterasu throughout Japan serve as receiving stations for her divine transmission. The most sacred of these is the Grand Shrine of Ise, where the sun goddess has been honored for over 2,000 years. The shrine buildings are reconstructed every 20 years, ensuring that Amaterasu's dwelling place remains eternally fresh and new. At Ise, the sacred mirrors that hold Amaterasu's presence are hidden from human sight in the innermost sanctuaries. Only the highest priests and priestesses ever look upon these divine instruments. The mirrors themselves are said to pulse with their own inner light, reflecting not the faces of observers but the radiance of the sun goddess herself. The rituals performed at Amaterasu's shrines follow patterns established at the beginning of Japanese civilization. Offerings of rice and sake acknowledge the sun goddess as the source of all nourishment. The rice grows green in flooded fields because Amaterasu's light penetrates water to reach the roots of the sacred grain. The silk fabrics offered to the sun goddess are woven with prayers embedded in every thread. Master weavers enter meditative states as they work their looms. The resulting textiles carry the vibrations of devotional consciousness made visible in patterns of extraordinary beauty. The sake presented to Amaterasu represents the transformation of simple rice into something that can elevate consciousness. Just as the sun goddess transforms ordinary sunlight into the energy that sustains all life, the sacred brewers transform humble grain into liquid that opens human awareness to divine presence. The Kagura dances performed in Amaterasu's honor tell the story of her retreat into the celestial cave when her brother Susanoo's violence overwhelmed her gentle nature. These sacred dances recreate the cosmic crisis when the sun goddess withdrew her light from the world, plunging creation into darkness. The cave where Amaterasu hid represents the inner sanctuary where consciousness retreats when wounded by the harshness of existence. The sun goddess teaches that even divine beings sometimes need solitude and healing. There is no shame in withdrawing from overwhelming circumstances to restore one's inner light. The other kami who gathered outside Amaterasu's cave to coax her back into the world represent the community support that helps consciousness emerge from darkness. The goddess of dawn, Uzume, performed a dance so joyful and beautiful that Amaterasu's curiosity overcame her hurt. The laughter of the assembled gods convinced her that light was still welcome in the world. The bronze mirror that the clever gods placed outside the cave entrance caught and reflected Amaterasu's own radiance back to her. When the sun goddess saw her own beauty reflected in this perfect surface, she remembered her essential nature. She forgot her wounds and stepped back into the world, restoring light to creation. This myth teaches profound wisdom about the recovery from spiritual depression or withdrawal. Like Amaterasu, consciousness sometimes needs to retreat into healing darkness. But eventually, the inner light must be allowed to shine again. Community support and reminders of one's own divine beauty can help restore the courage to emerge from protective isolation. The sacred rope that the gods stretched across the cave entrance after Amaterasu emerged symbolizes the commitment never again to allow complete darkness to overtake the world. This Shimenawa rope, made of rice straw and adorned with sacred paper streamers, marks the boundary between ordinary space and the sacred presence of the sun goddess. The festivals celebrating Amaterasu's return from the cave occur throughout Japan during the winter solstice. These celebrations acknowledge the sun goddess's daily victory over darkness. Even in the darkest months of winter, Amaterasu's light continues to grow stronger, promising the return of spring warmth and new growth. The agricultural cycles of Japan follow Amaterasu's rhythm of withdrawal and emergence. Winter is the season when the sun goddess rests in her celestial cave, allowing the earth to sleep beneath blankets of snow. Spring comes when she emerges with renewed radiance, calling forth the cherry blossoms and wakening the rice paddies. The tea ceremony honors Amaterasu through the careful preparation of hot water that has absorbed her solar energy. The steam that rises from the tea bowl carries prayers upward to the sun goddess. The warmth that spreads through the body when drinking tea is Amaterasu's blessing made tangible and immediate. As the sun goddess settles into her eternal pattern of daily emergence and retreat, as her presence ensures that light will always return to balance darkness, we can rest in the knowledge that divine radiance watches over all existence. Under Amaterasu's protection, every dawn brings new possibilities for spiritual growth and understanding. Every ray of sunlight carries the potential for enlightenment. Every moment of warmth and brightness reflects the infinite love of the divine feminine principle that nurtures all life. The golden light deepens as Amaterasu prepares for her daily rest. From the storm-darkened skies, another divine presence approaches. This is Susanoo, the tempestuous god of storms and sea, whose wild energy balances his sister's gentle radiance. From the dark edges of the celestial realm, Susanoo approaches. He is the storm god, the tempestuous brother of radiant Amaterasu. His presence brings the wild power of typhoons and the cleansing fury of lightning. Where Amaterasu offers gentle warmth, Susanoo delivers the dramatic energy that reshapes landscapes and transforms consciousness through intensity. The storm god moves across the sky like controlled chaos given divine form. Susanoo's footsteps shake the foundations of mountains. His breath becomes the howling winds that bend ancient trees and scatter cherry blossoms like snow. His voice is the thunder that rolls across Japanese valleys, carrying messages too powerful for ordinary speech. Susanoo's hair flows behind him like storm clouds pregnant with rain, dark masses that shift and change shape as they move. These divine tresses crackle with electrical energy. Lightning plays through their depths like silver serpents dancing through shadow and wind. The armor that protects the storm god's body is forged from crystallized tempests. Each plate reflects the fierce beauty of natural forces unleashed. The metal gleams with the cold light of lightning. It resonates with the deep drum rhythm of thunder rolling across distant peaks. In Susanoo's hands he carries the sword Kusanagi. This blade was discovered in the body of the great serpent Yamata no Orochi after the storm god's epic battle with the eight-headed, eight-tailed monster. Kusanagi represents the divine weapon that emerges from victory over chaotic forces. It is the crystallized power of storms transformed into an instrument of justice. The storm god's eyes flash with the unpredictable energy of natural forces that serve cosmic purposes beyond human understanding. Sometimes, Susanoo's gaze brings destruction that appears senseless. But this destruction always clears away what has become stagnant, making space for new growth and fresh possibilities. Susanoo's birth from the nose of the creator god Izanagi reveals the divine origin of passionate energy that refuses to be controlled or domesticated. Where Amaterasu emerged from Izanagi's left eye as gentle light, Susanoo burst forth as the raw power of emotional expression that will not be suppressed or ignored. The conflict between Susanoo and his sister Amaterasu represents the eternal tension between gentle nurturing and forceful transformation. These divine siblings embody complementary aspects of cosmic energy. Both are necessary for the full spectrum of spiritual development. Growth requires both the sun's patient warmth and the storm's dramatic catalyst. The contest between the storm god and the sun goddess began when Susanoo sought to prove his noble intentions. He proposed that they each create divine children to demonstrate the purity of their respective powers. This competition revealed the complex relationship between masculine and feminine divine energies. Amaterasu took Susanoo's sword and broke it into 3 pieces. From these fragments, she breathed forth 3 goddesses of exquisite beauty and grace. These daughters represented the sun goddess's ability to transform even instruments of war into sources of divine harmony and peace. Susanoo took 5 of Amaterasu's sacred jewels and created from them 5 male gods of strength and valor. These sons embodied the storm god's capacity to channel raw power into protective service. They became guardians who would defend the divine realm against all threats. But victory in their creative contest made Susanoo proud and reckless. The storm god began to celebrate with increasing wildness. His joy became a tempest that threatened to destroy the very realm he sought to protect. Divine emotion, when uncontrolled, can become as destructive as beneficial. Susanoo's rampage through the celestial fields damaged Amaterasu's sacred rice paddies. The storm god's horses trampled the carefully tended crops that provided sustenance for gods and mortals alike. His wild energy disrupted the harmonious cycles of growth and harvest that the sun goddess had established. The storm god's invasion of Amaterasu's weaving hall was the final violation that drove the sun goddess into her cave of retreat. Susanoo's masculine energy, unchecked by wisdom or restraint, became a force of chaos that overwhelmed the delicate work of divine feminine creativity. When Amaterasu withdrew into darkness, leaving the world without her light, the other gods understood that Susanoo's behavior had crossed the line from passionate celebration into destructive madness. Divine power requires divine responsibility. Strength without wisdom becomes tyranny, even when the intentions are not malicious. The punishment imposed on Susanoo was exile from the celestial realm. The storm god was stripped of his divine beard and fingernails, symbolic castration that removed his ability to cause further damage to the cosmic order. He was cast down to earth to learn humility through direct experience of mortal limitations. Susanoo's exile teaches profound lessons about the relationship between power and wisdom. Divine abilities require divine maturity to be used constructively. Raw energy, no matter how magnificent, must be tempered by understanding and compassion to serve rather than destroy the greater good. On earth, the humbled storm god encountered the great serpent Yamata no Orochi. This monster possessed 8 heads and 8 tails. Its eyes were red as winter cherries, its belly was always bloody. Its length could stretch across 8 valleys and 8 hills. The serpent represented primordial chaos that devours everything in its path. The battle between Susanoo and Yamata no Orochi became the cosmic drama of divine consciousness, learning to conquer the destructive aspects of its own nature. The storm god could not defeat the serpent through brute force alone. Victory required strategy, patience, and the wisdom that comes from accepting responsibility for one's actions. Susanoo's strategy involved offering the serpent 8 vats of sacred sake. Each head drank from its own vessel until all 8 were thoroughly intoxicated. Only when Yamata no Orochi was stupefied by alcohol could the storm god approach safely enough to strike fatal blows. This myth reveals that chaos cannot be conquered through chaotic means. Destructive forces must be approached with intelligence and preparation. The storm god learned that true strength lies not in overwhelming fury, but in the disciplined application of power guided by wisdom. The discovery of Kusanagi in the serpent's tail was Susanoo's reward for learning these difficult lessons. The sword represents divine authority earned through spiritual maturity. It becomes the instrument by which reformed power can serve justice rather than satisfy ego. Susanoo's redemption was completed through his rescue of the maiden Kushinada from another serpent threat. The storm god's protection of innocence demonstrated that his wild energy had been successfully transformed into benevolent strength. He had learned to be fierce in defense of what deserves protection. The marriage between Susanoo and Kushinada represents the union of divine power with earthly beauty. The storm god's energy, properly channeled through love and commitment, becomes a force that nurtures rather than destroys. Passion guided by devotion creates rather than consumes. The palace that Susanoo built for his bride was constructed from the grateful songs of those he had protected. The walls resonated with harmonies of appreciation. The roof was thatched with the golden gratitude of rice farmers whose crops his reformed energy now blessed instead of threatened. The descendants of Susanoo became the earthly rulers of Japan. These royal lines carried within their bloodstream the genetic memory of divine storm energy balanced by hard-won wisdom. They ruled not through tyranny, but through the dynamic strength that protects and serves. The shrines dedicated to Susanoo throughout Japan honor him as the reformed god who learned to channel destructive potential into protective power. These sacred spaces often stand in locations that have been struck by lightning or survived great storms. They mark places where divine energy has touched Earth with transformative intensity. The rituals performed at Susanoo's shrines acknowledge both his potential for destruction and his power to protect. Offerings include weapons to honor his warrior aspect and rice to acknowledge his role in ensuring abundant harvests. The storm god's energy can bring either devastation or renewal, depending on how it is approached. The festivals celebrating Susanoo often involve controlled expressions of wild energy. Sacred dances, martial arts demonstrations, and ceremonial battles allow participants to channel their own tempestuous emotions in ways that serve community rather than threaten it. As the storm god takes his place in the pantheon of reformed divine powers, as his presence ensures that passionate energy will always be available to serve justice and protection, we can rest knowing that even destructive forces can be transformed through wisdom and love. Under Susanoo's evolved protection, righteous anger becomes a tool of justice rather than vengeance. Emotional intensity becomes fuel for creative transformation rather than destructive chaos. The storms of life become opportunities for growth rather than disasters to be feared. The wind grows calmer as Susanoo settles into his eternal role as guardian of the threshold between chaos and order. From the depths of the underworld, another divine presence rises to meet us. This is Izanami, the goddess who gave birth to the islands of Japan before becoming the ruler of the land of the dead. From the primordial depths where creation and dissolution dance their eternal dance, Izanami rises. She is the great mother goddess who gave birth to the islands of Japan. She is also the queen of Yomi, the underworld realm where all souls journey after death. Her presence brings both the creative power that forms new worlds and the transformative wisdom that guides consciousness through its ultimate transitions. Izanami approaches with the quiet authority of one who has experienced both the ecstasy of creation and the profound mystery of death. Her movements carry the grace of tides that shape coastlines over countless centuries. Every step she takes reminds us that creation and destruction are partners in the cosmic dance of eternal transformation. The goddess wears robes that shimmer between the colors of life and death. Sometimes her garments gleam with the pearl white of new morning mist rising from fertile valleys. Other times they darken to the deep purple of twilight when day surrenders to the healing darkness of night. Izanami's hair flows like black water, carrying within its depths the memory of every island she helped create. Strands that caught starlight when she and Izanagi stirred the primordial ocean with their jeweled spear. Tresses that remember the joy of watching land emerge from the marriage of heaven and sea. The eyes of the great mother goddess hold depths that have witnessed the birth of worlds and the transformation of countless souls. These eyes have seen the first volcanic fires that raised mountains from ocean floors. They have watched the final breath leave mortal bodies as consciousness prepares for its journey into mystery. In her left hand, Izanami carries the jeweled spear Ama no Nuhoko that she and her husband Izanagi used to stir the chaotic waters of early creation. This sacred weapon still drips with the crystalline essence from which the Japanese islands were formed. Each drop that falls creates new possibilities for growth and transformation. In her right hand, the goddess holds the key to Yomi, the underworld realm over which she rules. This key opens not prison doors but gates of understanding. It unlocks the wisdom that can only be gained through direct experience of death's transformative mysteries. The story of Izanami begins in the time before time, when heaven and earth existed but remained unconnected. The goddess descended from the celestial realm together with her divine husband Izanagi. Their mission was to create solid ground where life could flourish and consciousness could explore its infinite possibilities. Standing on the floating bridge of heaven, Izanami and Izanagi looked down into the chaos of primordial waters. Everything swirled in endless motion without form or purpose. The divine couple understood that their love must become the organizing principle that would bring order to this beautiful chaos. Together, Izanami and Izanagi plunged their jeweled spear into the churning waters below. They stirred the ocean with movements that followed the rhythm of their united hearts. The spear became an extension of their divine will, channeling creative energy into the formless potential that surrounded them. When they lifted the spear from the water, drops of crystallized possibility fell from its point back into the sea. Each drop that touched the surface became an island. The first land masses that would eventually become Japan took shape from the love of two divine beings who understood how to work together in perfect harmony. Izanami gave birth to each island through conscious collaboration with the creative forces of existence. She did not create through struggle or force, but through surrender to the natural processes by which potential becomes manifest. Each island was a child born from divine love, expressing itself through matter. The goddess first created Onogoro, the self-forming island that became the foundation for all subsequent creation. This island represented the principle of organic development, growth that follows inner wisdom rather than external manipulation. Onogoro showed how creation works best when allowed to unfold according to its own inherent intelligence. From Onogoro, Izanami gave birth to the 8 major islands of Japan. Each birth was a unique expression of her creative power. Awaji emerged like a child eager for light. Shikoku took shape with the perfect balance of natural forces. Honshu stretched itself across the waters like a dragon made of earth and stone. The goddess also gave birth to the kami who would govern the natural forces essential for life to flourish. The The god of wind emerged to bring motion to the air. The goddess of mountains rose to create vertical dimensions where clouds could rest. The deity of fire was born to warm hearts and cook food and forge tools. But when Izanami gave birth to Kagutsuchi, the god of fire, the flames of his divine nature burned her body so severely that she died from the creative effort. This was the first death in creation, the moment when the Great Mother discovered that even divine beings can be transformed by the intensity of their own creative power. Izanagi's grief at losing his beloved wife and creative partner drove him to desperate actions. He drew his sword and killed Kagutsuchi, whose birth had caused Izanami's death. But even this act of violent sorrow became creative, as 8 more gods emerged from different parts of the fire god's divine body. The descent of Izanagi into Yomi to retrieve his wife represents consciousness confronting the ultimate mystery of death and transformation. The underworld that Izanami rules is not a place of punishment, but a realm of profound education where souls learn to exist independently of physical form. Yomi appears to visitors as a vast underground landscape lit by its own phosphorescent energy. The light comes not from any external source, but from the accumulated wisdom of all souls who have made the transition from mortal to eternal existence. This inner radiance illuminates paths that lead to understanding beyond earthly comprehension. The palace where Izanami rules in Yomi is constructed from crystallized acceptance. Its walls are built from the patient understanding that allows consciousness to embrace change rather than resist it. The throne room where the goddess receives souls is designed to create perfect peace in those who enter seeking guidance. When Izanagi found his wife in her underworld palace, he discovered that she had already begun to eat the food of the dead. This nourishment transformed her nature so completely that she could no longer return to the realm of ordinary life. She had become something more than she was before, but also something different. The argument between Izanagi and Izanami when he refused to accept her transformation represents the difficulty consciousness has in embracing change, even when that change leads to greater wisdom and expanded capabilities. The familiar form of love may resist the unfamiliar wisdom that growth requires. Izanami's pursuit of Izanagi as he fled from Yomi was not vengeance but desperate love, trying to help him understand that death is not loss but graduation. The goddess sent various messengers to catch up with her husband and explain the gifts that come with accepting life's most profound transformations. The boulder that Izanagi rolled across the entrance to Yomi represents the barrier that consciousness creates between life and death when it refuses to understand their essential unity. This stone becomes the source of ongoing conflict between two aspects of existence that are actually meant to work together. The daily quota of deaths that Izanami promised to bring to the world was balanced by Izanagi's promise to create new life in even greater numbers. This exchange established the natural rhythm by which consciousness explores different forms of existence. Death becomes not ending, but transition to new possibilities. In her role as Queen of the Underworld, Izanami serves as the great teacher who helps souls understand what they have learned through earthly experience. The goddess guides consciousness through the review process that reveals the spiritual significance of every choice made during physical incarnation. The judgment that souls receive in Yomi focuses not on punishment but on education. Izanami helps newly arrived spirits understand how their earthly actions either supported or hindered their spiritual development. This understanding becomes the foundation for planning future learning experiences. The purification that souls undergo in Yomi prepares them for their next phase of existence. Some consciousness will reincarnate to continue their earthly education. Others will advance to higher dimensions of spiritual service. Izanami ensures that each soul receives exactly the preparation it needs. The festivals honoring Izanami throughout Japan acknowledge her dual role as creator and transformer. Offerings include both symbols of fertility and tokens of respect for the deceased. The goddess is honored as the power that brings new life and the wisdom that guides souls through death's transformation. The shrines dedicated to Izanami often stand in places where the boundary between life and death seems particularly thin. Sacred caves that descend deep into the earth, mountain peaks where the air carries whispers from other realms, coastal areas where waves speak in languages older than human memory. As the great mother goddess settles into her eternal role as guardian of the threshold between form and formlessness, as her presence ensures that both creation and transformation will continue their cosmic dance, we can rest in the knowledge that change itself is guided by divine love. Under Izanami's protection, death becomes not catastrophe but commencement. Every ending becomes a doorway to new understanding. Every loss transforms into an opportunity for consciousness to discover capacities it never knew it possessed. The gentle darkness deepens as Izanami returns to her underworld realm. From the sacred mountains where mortals seek divine wisdom, another presence approaches. This is Inari, the rice deity whose foxes carry messages between the human and divine worlds. Through the morning mist that rises from rice paddies across Japan, Inari approaches. This is the deity of rice, prosperity, and cunning wisdom. Inari's presence brings the abundance that flows from understanding the natural cycles of growth and harvest. The rice god moves with the patient grace of one who knows that true wealth comes not from rushing, but from perfect timing. Inari appears sometimes as a bearded old man carrying sheaves of golden rice. Other times, the deity manifests as a beautiful woman whose kimono sparkles with patterns of flowing grain. Most often, Inari takes the form of a white fox whose eyes hold the accumulated wisdom of countless harvests. The rice god's foxes are perhaps the most beloved of all Japanese spirit animals. These kitsune serve as Inari's messengers, carrying prayers from human hearts to divine attention. They move through the world with intelligence that surpasses ordinary animal understanding. Each fox possesses magical abilities that grow stronger with age and wisdom. The kitsune that serve Inari are not ordinary foxes but celestial beings clothed in fox form for their earthly missions. Their fur shimmers with inner light that becomes visible to human eyes during moments of deep spiritual communion. This radiance marks them as creatures who exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions of reality. The white foxes are Inari's most trusted servants. These pure-colored kitsune have achieved spiritual status that allows them to shape-shift at will. They can appear as humans when such disguise serves their mission of helping mortals understand the deeper mysteries of prosperity and abundance. The red foxes carry Inari's fiery energy of transformation. These copper-colored messengers specialize in teaching lessons about how apparent obstacles can become opportunities when approached with sufficient cleverness and patience. Red kitsune often appear to those who need to learn creative problem-solving. The silver foxes embody Inari's connection to lunar wisdom and feminine intuition. These moon-touched kitsune work primarily at night, bringing dreams that reveal hidden truths about abundance and scarcity. They teach that real prosperity must include spiritual as well as material wealth. The black foxes represent Inari's shadow wisdom, the understanding that sometimes apparent misfortune serves larger purposes. These dark-furred messengers appear to souls who need to learn that true abundance cannot be achieved through means that harm others or violate natural law. The golden foxes are Inari's most advanced servants. These radiant beings appear only to those who have achieved sufficient spiritual development to receive direct teaching about the cosmic principles that govern material manifestation. Golden kitsune can bestow wishes, but only upon those who wish for what serves the greater good. Each of Inari's foxes possesses multiple tails that increase in number as the creature grows in wisdom and spiritual power. A one-tailed fox is young and learning its role as divine messenger. A nine-tailed fox has achieved such spiritual advancement that it can perform miracles rivaling those of the gods themselves. The intelligence of Inari's foxes surpasses that of most humans. These creatures understand languages, both spoken and unspoken. They can read the intentions written in human hearts. They comprehend the subtle communications that flow between all forms of consciousness throughout the natural world. The shape-shifting abilities of Inari's kitsune allow them to interact with humans in forms that will be most helpful for specific teaching situations. A fox might appear as a wise old farmer to share agricultural knowledge, or as a beautiful courtesan to teach lessons about the relationship between desire and true satisfaction. The rice that Inari governs is not merely a grain crop, but the foundation of Japanese civilization. Rice cultivation requires communities working together in harmony with natural cycles. The flooded paddies where rice grows become mirrors reflecting heaven to earth, connecting the mundane work of farming with cosmic principles. The irrigation systems that channel water through rice fields represent Inari's teaching about the flow of abundance. Water must be shared equitably for all fields to prosper. Hoarding water upstream eventually destroys the entire system. True prosperity depends on understanding how individual and collective welfare are inseparably connected. The planting of rice follows lunar cycles that Inari's foxes understand perfectly. The seeds are sown when the moon's energy supports new beginnings. The young plants are transplanted when celestial forces favor growth and establishment. Harvest comes when cosmic timing aligns with earthly readiness. The sake brewed from Inari's rice becomes liquid prayer when offered at shrines throughout Japan. The fermentation process transforms simple grain into something that can elevate consciousness and facilitate communion between human and divine awareness. Sacred sake carries the essence of successful collaboration between earth and heaven. The torii gates that mark entrances to Inari shrines are painted bright vermilion red to honor the life force that flows through all creation. These gates create thresholds between ordinary consciousness and the heightened awareness where miraculous transformations become possible. Passing through these gates, visitors enter sacred space where material and spiritual laws operate differently. The thousands of red torii that line the mountain paths at Fushimi Inari Shrine create tunnels of transformation. Walking through these sacred corridors, pilgrims experience consciousness shifting from everyday concerns to mystical understanding. Each gate represents another level of spiritual initiation into Inari's mysteries. The fox statues that guard Inari shrines hold in their mouths various symbolic objects. Keys represent the unlocking of hidden treasures, both material and spiritual. Scrolls symbolize the wisdom teachings that lead to true abundance. Jewels indicate the precious understanding that transforms ordinary life into divine service. The offerings left at Inari shrines include rice, sake, and fried tofu. The rice acknowledges the deity as the source of basic sustenance. The sake represents gratitude for the refinement that transforms simple nourishment into conscious communion. The tofu honors the foxes who are said to love this soy-based food. The business prosperity that Inari's worship can bring attracts many merchants and entrepreneurs to the deity's shrines. But Inari teaches that lasting success requires more than clever strategies or lucky breaks. True prosperity flows from alignment with natural law and genuine service to community welfare. The cunning that Inari represents is not selfish cleverness, but wisdom that finds creative solutions serving everyone's highest good. The rice deity teaches that intelligence without compassion becomes mere trickery, while compassion without intelligence often fails to create lasting positive change. The harvest festivals celebrating Inari occur throughout Japan during autumn months when rice reaches maturity. These celebrations acknowledge that abundance comes through cooperation between human effort and divine blessing. Neither works alone, but together they can create prosperity that nourishes both body and spirit. The rice wine ceremonies honoring Inari involve careful attention to every detail of preparation and presentation. The vessels used must be perfectly clean. The movements of the servers must reflect reverence for the sacred nature of what they handle. Each gesture becomes part of the prayer offering gratitude for divine generosity. The dance performances at Inari festivals often feature fox masks and costumes that allow human performers to embody kitsune energy. These sacred dances teach participants and observers about the fluid boundary between human and animal consciousness, between earthly and divine intelligence. The storytelling traditions associated with Inari preserve thousands of tales about encounters between humans and the deity's fox messengers. These stories teach practical wisdom about recognizing divine guidance when it appears in unexpected forms. They remind listeners that help often comes disguised as ordinary circumstance. The meditation practices developed at Inari temples focus on cultivating the patience and attention to detail that successful rice cultivation requires. Practitioners learn to sit still as rice plants, allowing growth to occur at natural pace rather than forcing premature development through impatience or anxiety. The agricultural wisdom preserved in Inari's teachings extends beyond rice cultivation to include all forms of nurturing growth. Gardens prosper when tended with the understanding that plants, like humans, respond better to gentle encouragement than harsh force. Love literally makes things grow more abundantly. The merchant guilds that developed under Inari's protection understood that ethical business practices create more sustainable prosperity than exploitation or deception. The deity's foxes are said to withdraw their blessing from enterprises that achieve short-term profit through means that cause long-term harm. As Inari settles into eternal guardianship over the cycles of planting, growth, and harvest that sustain both physical and spiritual life, as the rice deity's foxes continue their patient work of teaching wisdom through practical experience, we can rest in the knowledge that abundance is always available to consciousness willing to work in harmony with natural law. Under Inari's protection, every seed planted with right intention will find the conditions necessary for its growth. Every effort made in service of genuine prosperity will receive the support of forces larger than individual will. Every act of generosity toward others creates the foundation for receiving abundance in return. The red Torii gates glow softly in the mountain mist as Inari's presence brings blessing to all who seek prosperity through wisdom rather than exploitation. From the highest peaks where eagles nest and clouds are born, another divine presence prepares to descend. This is Tengu, the mountain spirit whose fierce wisdom teaches the warrior's path to enlightenment. From the highest peaks of sacred mountains where clouds are born and eagles make their nests, the Tengu descend. These are the warrior spirits of Japanese mythology, beings who embody the fierce wisdom that comes from mastering both martial arts and spiritual discipline. The Tengu approach with the controlled power of avalanches, the focused intensity of lightning, the ancient authority of mountains themselves. The Tengu appear as humanoid beings with distinctive features that mark their supernatural nature. Some possess the beaks and wings of great birds of prey. Others display elongated red noses that reflect their connection to fire and breath, to the life force that animates all martial arts and spiritual practices. These mountain spirits wear robes that flutter like living wind, garments woven from cloud silk and starlight. Their clothing moves with its own rhythm, stirred by currents that flow between the earthly and celestial realms. Each fold and crease reflects their mastery of the invisible forces that connect matter and spirit. The weapons that Tengu carry are not mere tools of war, but instruments of spiritual instruction. Their swords cut through illusion as easily as flesh. Their staffs channel the energy of mountain peaks and storm clouds. Their fans can summon winds that scatter enemies or gentle breezes that bring peace to troubled hearts. The wings of bird-like Tengu are not simply for flight, but symbols of consciousness that has learned to rise above earthly limitations while remaining grounded in practical wisdom. These spiritual warriors can soar through physical dimensions and also navigate the subtle realms where thought and reality maintain more fluid relationships. The famous red noses of human-like Tengu represent the breath control that is essential to all advanced martial and spiritual arts. These elongated features mark practitioners who have learned to direct life force energy with precision and power. The nose becomes the visible sign of mastery over the invisible forces that govern vitality and awareness. Tengu make their homes in the most inaccessible mountain locations, sacred peaks where humans rarely venture, hidden valleys protected by natural barriers of rock and storm, ancient forests where the trees themselves serve as guardians of secrets too powerful for ordinary consciousness to handle safely. The mountain retreats where Tengu dwell are constructed from materials that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Walls of crystallized determination that can be solid or transparent depending on the observer's spiritual development. Roofs of woven intentions that provide perfect protection while allowing divine influences to flow freely through the structure. The training grounds where Tengu practice their arts stretch across landscapes that shift and change according to the needs of each exercise. Rocky pinnacles for developing balance and fearlessness. Flowing streams for learning fluid movement and adaptability. Open meadows where the full power of advanced techniques can be unleashed without causing damage. The most famous Tengu is Sojobo, the king of these mountain spirits who rules from his palace on Mount Kurama near Kyoto. Sojobo appears as an immensely tall figure with a magnificent white beard that flows like winter waterfalls. His eyes hold the accumulated wisdom of countless centuries spent mastering every aspect of warrior training. Under Sojobo's instruction, the legendary warrior Minamoto no Yoshitsune learned the supernatural fighting skills that made him one of Japan's greatest military heroes. The Tengu king taught not just physical techniques, but the spiritual principles that transform ordinary combat into sacred art. The lessons that Tengu provide to worthy students go far beyond martial skills. These mountain spirits teach the integration of body, mind, and spirit that creates warriors capable of serving justice rather than satisfying personal ambition. Their training develops character as much as capability. The trials that Tengu impose on potential students test not just physical courage, but moral integrity. A candidate might be required to defend the helpless against overwhelming odds, or to resist temptations that would compromise ethical standards. Only those who prove their commitment to righteous action receive advanced instruction. The speed training that Tengu provide enables students to move faster than human eyes can follow. But this supernatural velocity comes not from enhanced muscles, but from consciousness, learning to flow with natural forces rather than fighting against them. True speed emerges from perfect efficiency rather than mere effort. The sword techniques taught by Tengu utilize principles that apply to spiritual as well as physical combat. Students learn to cut through their own mental limitations with the same precision they use to defeat external opponents. Every practice session becomes meditation on the nature of conflict and resolution. The staff work that Tengu master demonstrates how simple weapons can channel complex energies when wielded by consciousness that understands the connection between visible action and invisible force. A Tengu staff becomes an extension of will itself, capable of directing power with surgical precision. The fan techniques developed by Tengu show how apparently decorative objects can become instruments of great power in hands that understand their true potential. The war fans used by these mountain spirits can deflect arrows, summon winds, and even redirect the energy of enemy attacks back toward their source. The flying abilities of Tengu represent more than supernatural power. They symbolize consciousness that has learned to navigate between different levels of reality. These warrior spirits can travel through physical space and also move instantly across vast distances through focused intention alone. The shape-shifting capacities of Tengu allow them to appear in forms most suited to their current teaching mission. They might manifest as elderly hermits to test a student's respect for wisdom, or as fierce demons to challenge courage and determination. Each form serves specific pedagogical purposes. The pranks and tricks for which Tengu are famous serve educational functions rather than mere entertainment. A Tengu might lead a proud samurai astray in the mountains to teach lessons about humility, or create illusions that force students to question their assumptions about the nature of reality. The protective role that Tengu play for Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines reflects their understanding that true spiritual power serves sacred purposes rather than selfish desires. These mountain spirits become fierce guardians of holy places where sincere seekers come to deepen their connection with divine truth. The festivals honoring Tengu throughout Japan often feature martial arts demonstrations that showcase techniques inspired by these legendary teachers. Participants wear Tengu masks and perform movements that embody the fierce grace these mountain spirits represent. The demonstrations become forms of moving meditation. The shrines dedicated to Tengu usually occupy dramatic mountain locations where the energy of these warrior spirits remains strong. Visitors come seeking blessings for martial arts training, protection during dangerous journeys, and the courage needed to face life's more challenging trials. The modern martial arts schools that trace their lineage back to Tengu teachings preserve not just fighting techniques, but the ethical principles that prevent such knowledge from being misused. Students learn that true mastery requires wisdom and compassion as much as skill and strength. The meditation practices associated with Tengu training focus on developing the mental clarity and emotional balance essential for effective action in crisis situations. Practitioners learn to maintain perfect centeredness even when surrounded by chaos and danger. The breathing techniques taught by Tengu masters regulate not just physical respiration, but the flow of life force energy throughout the body. Advanced practitioners can control their internal states so completely that fear, anger, and other disruptive emotions cannot disturb their strategic thinking or precise movement. The connection between Tengu and thunder gods reflects their mastery of explosive power controlled by disciplined will. Like lightning, these warrior spirits can strike with devastating effect when justice requires such intervention, but their power remains perfectly controlled by wisdom and compassion. The role of Tengu as teachers of supernatural abilities extends beyond martial arts to include all forms of accomplishment that require the integration of natural talent with spiritual discipline. Musicians, artists, and craftsmen also seek instruction from these mountain spirits when they wish to transcend ordinary limitations. The longevity attributed to Tengu results not from avoiding death, but from consciousness that has learned to exist independently of any particular form while remaining actively engaged in service to spiritual evolution. These beings demonstrate that immortality comes through dedication to purposes larger than personal survival. The respect that other supernatural beings show toward Tengu reflects recognition of their genuine spiritual accomplishment rather than mere power. Even demons and dragons acknowledge the authority of consciousness that has mastered both fierce strength and profound wisdom. As the Tengu settle into their eternal guardianship of the mountain peaks where earth meets heaven, as their presence ensures that the warrior's path to enlightenment will always be available to those with sufficient courage and determination, we can rest in the knowledge that spiritual strength has divine protectors. Under the Tengu's guidance, physical training becomes spiritual practice. Every challenge faced becomes an opportunity for growth. Every technique mastered becomes a key that unlocks greater understanding of the connection between individual will and cosmic power. The mountain mists swirl around the sacred peaks as the Tengu return to their hidden retreats. From the bamboo groves where moonlight filters through endless green corridors, another presence approaches with the gentle wisdom of nature herself. This is the bamboo cutter's daughter, Kaguya Hime, whose beauty contains the light of the moon itself. Through the silver bamboo groves where moonlight weaves patterns of shadow and radiance, Kaguya Hime approaches. She is the moon princess, the celestial maiden whose beauty surpasses earthly understanding. Her presence brings the gentle luminosity of lunar wisdom and the bittersweet truth that the most precious gifts often carry within them the seeds of their own transformation. Kaguya Hime moves with grace that seems to flow from the moon itself. Each step creates ripples of silver light that spread through the bamboo forest like gentle waves across a still pond. Her movements carry the rhythm of tides, the patient pulse of lunar cycles that govern the deep currents of earthly life. The princess wears robes woven from moonbeams and the sighs of lovers who have gazed up at her celestial home. The fabric shimmers with colors that exist only in the space between dreams and waking. Her garments move with their own ethereal life, stirred by breezes that blow from the lunar realm to earthly gardens. Kaguya Hime's hair cascades around her shoulders like liquid starlight. Each strand captures and holds the essence of nocturnal beauty, the mysterious radiance that makes night flowers bloom and causes poets to weep with the intensity of their inspiration. Her tresses move with the gentle rhythm of clouds drifting across the face of the full moon. The eyes of the moon princess hold depths of silver fire that reflect the accumulated wisdom of countless nights spent watching over the dreams of mortals. These eyes have seen every secret wish whispered to the moon. They have witnessed every prayer offered to the night sky by hearts seeking guidance and consolation. The bamboo grove where Kaguya Hime was discovered grows in perfect harmony with lunar rhythms. Each stalk reaches toward the moon with the devotion of a lover stretching toward the beloved. The hollow chambers within the bamboo stems resonate with celestial music that can be heard by those whose hearts have been purified by genuine longing. The old bamboo cutter Takatori no Okina found the tiny princess glowing inside a bamboo shoot that pulsed with inner light. The discovery transformed his humble life into something magical. The presence of celestial beauty in his simple cottage taught him that divine grace can manifest in the most ordinary circumstances. Kaguya Hime's rapid growth from tiny infant to full-grown maiden of extraordinary beauty represents the acceleration that occurs when celestial consciousness inhabits earthly form. The princess developed not according to human timetables, but following lunar cycles that compress eons of spiritual evolution into brief earthly moments. The supernatural beauty of Kaguya Hime attracts suitors from across the Japanese empire, but her loveliness goes deeper than physical appearance. The princess radiates the spiritual beauty of consciousness that has maintained perfect purity throughout countless incarnations. Her very presence elevates the thoughts and feelings of all who encounter her. The 5 noble suitors who compete for Kaguya Hime's hand represent different approaches to winning divine favor. Each man embodies a different strategy that humans use when trying to capture what cannot be possessed. Their failures teach profound lessons about the nature of spiritual treasure. The first suitor seeks the stone-begging bowl of the Buddha, believing that association with sacred objects will win the princess's love. His attempt to purchase spiritual authenticity through material acquisition demonstrates the futility of trying to buy what can only be earned through genuine spiritual development. The second suitor pursues the jeweled branch from the mythical Harai tree, hoping that magical objects will compensate for his lack of sincere devotion. His commissioning of artificial treasures reveals how ego attempts to substitute clever imitations for authentic spiritual attainment. The third suitor hunts for the legendary fire rat's robe, thinking that rare possessions will prove his worthiness. His acquisition of a fake garment that burns when tested shows how spiritual pretense cannot withstand the fire of genuine discrimination. The fourth suitor searches for the 5-colored jewel that decorates a dragon's neck, imagining that demonstrations of courage will win divine love. His fabrication of false evidence reveals how ego dramatizes itself rather than undertaking the quiet inner work that develops real spiritual strength. The fifth suitor attempts to bring the cowrie shell borne by swallows, believing that accomplishing impossible tasks will earn him the right to possess celestial beauty. His elaborate deception illustrates how pride leads consciousness to attempt shortcuts rather than surrendering to the gradual processes of authentic transformation. The impossible tasks that Kaguya Hime sets for her suitors are not arbitrary cruelties, but compassionate tests designed to help each man understand his own spiritual condition. The princess offers each suitor the opportunity to discover the difference between ego-driven desire and genuine love. The tears that Kaguya Hime sheds when her suitors bring false treasures are not ordinary salt water, but liquid moonlight that holds the power to dissolve illusions. These celestial tears reveal truth wherever they fall. They show the authentic nature hidden beneath surface appearances. The emperor himself falls in love with Kaguya-hime when her beauty is reported throughout the land. But even imperial power cannot command what can only be given freely. The princess's gentle refusal of the emperor's advances teaches that divine consciousness cannot be conquered but only invited through genuine worthiness. The relationship that develops between the emperor and Kaguya-hime demonstrates the possibility of love that transcends possession. The princess offers friendship and spiritual companionship while maintaining her essential freedom. The emperor learns to appreciate her gifts without demanding ownership of their source. The letters that pass between the emperor and Kaguya-hime become treasured poetry that preserves the essence of their impossible love. These writings transform the pain of separation into artistic beauty that enriches the cultural heritage of Japan. Unrequited longing becomes the inspiration for immortal art. The revelation of Kaguya-hime's true identity as a lunar princess brings both explanation and tragic inevitability to her earthly sojourn. The princess was exiled from the moon realm for reasons that remain mysterious. Her earthly life has been a period of spiritual education disguised as punishment. The crimes that led to Kaguya-hime's celestial exile were not evil actions, but expressions of compassion that violated lunar law. The princess showed mercy to beings who had been condemned by lunar justice. Her punishment demonstrates that even divine compassion must be balanced by cosmic order. The time limit on Kaguya-hime's earthly stay creates the poignant awareness that the most precious experiences are often the most temporary. The princess's approaching return to her lunar home casts shadows of inevitable loss across every moment of joy she brings to those who love her. The celestial robes sent from the moon realm to prepare Kaguya-hime for her return possess the power to erase earthly memories and attachments. These garments represent the necessity of spiritual beings releasing their identification with any particular incarnation when it comes time to move to higher levels of service. The elixir of immortality that Kaguya-hime offers to the emperor before her departure holds the power to preserve earthly life indefinitely. But the emperor's refusal of immortality without the princess demonstrates the wisdom that recognizes eternal life without love as meaningless existence rather than blessed continuation. The emperor's burning of the immortality elixir on Mount Fuji creates the sacred fire that gives the mountain its name. Fuji means immortal or without death. The sacred peak becomes a monument to love that chooses mortality with the beloved over immortality in separation. The final departure of Kaguya-hime in the celestial chariot sent to retrieve her represents the inevitable return of divine consciousness to its original source. The princess's tearful farewell acknowledges the genuine love she has discovered during her earthly exile. Even celestial beings are transformed by authentic emotional connections. The celestial army that accompanies Kaguya-hime's retrieval demonstrates that divine law operates with cosmic authority that cannot be resisted by earthly power. The princess's departure becomes inevitable, despite the emperor's attempts to protect her from her celestial duty. The bamboo grove where Kaguya-hime first appeared continues to glow with residual lunar energy. Visitors report encounters with her lingering presence. The bamboo shoots still sing with celestial music for those whose hearts remain open to the possibility of divine visitation. The legacy of Kaguya-hime's earthly sojourn lives on in Japanese culture through art, poetry, and spiritual teaching that explore the relationship between beauty and impermanence. The princess's story becomes a meditation on the precious nature of temporary gifts that transform consciousness through their very transience. As the moon princess returns to her celestial home, as her presence ensures that lunar wisdom will always be available to earthly consciousness seeking guidance in matters of beauty and spiritual longing, we can rest in the knowledge that divine love watches over all authentic emotional connections. Under Kaguya-hime's protection, every moment of genuine beauty becomes eternal, despite its temporal limitations. Every experience of true love transcends mortality through the spiritual transformation it creates in those who participate fully in its gift. The silver light of the full moon bathes the bamboo groves as the princess's presence fades into luminous memory. From the sacred waters where dragons sleep beneath the waves, another divine presence stirs. This is Ryujin, the Dragon King whose underwater palace holds treasures beyond earthly imagination. From the deepest trenches of the Pacific Ocean where sunlight has never penetrated, Ryujin rises. He is the Dragon King of the sea, ruler of all waters that surround the Japanese islands. His presence brings the vast power of oceanic depths and the ancient wisdom of creatures who have witnessed the Earth's formation from beneath its liquid veil. Ryujin's approach transforms the very nature of water itself. Seas that were merely blue become depths of living sapphire. Rivers that flowed with simple current begin to pulse with draconic heartbeat. Even the smallest springs start to sing with voices that remember the songs whales sang when the world was young. The Dragon King appears as a magnificent serpent of impossible size, whose scales gleam with the concentrated essence of every pearl ever formed in oyster shells. Each scale reflects not light, but the accumulated dreams of all creatures who have ever gazed into water seeking visions of their deepest desires. Ryujin's eyes burn with the green fire of phosphorescence that illuminates the deepest ocean trenches. These ancient orbs have witnessed the birth of islands from volcanic fury. They have seen civilizations rise and fall while leaving no trace upon the eternal waters that cover most of the Earth's surface. The Dragon King's whiskers flow around his massive head like underwater rivers carrying the essence of every stream that has ever reached the sea. These magnificent appendages move with currents that follow no earthly tide, but respond instead to the cosmic rhythms that govern all water throughout the universe. The crown that adorns Ryujin's head is carved from a single coral reef that grew for 10,000 years in the deepest part of his underwater realm. This living crown pulses with its own inner light, reflecting the dragon's authority over all forms of marine life and his deep connection to the forces that create and sustain oceanic ecosystems. In his claws, the Dragon King grasps the magical jewels that control the tides of all the world's oceans. The Kanju jewel causes waters to rise with irresistible force. The Manju jewel draws tides back to their lowest ebb. These sacred gems respond only to Ryujin's will and the cosmic necessity for regular rhythm in all natural processes. The underwater palace where Ryujin holds court stretches across vast areas of the ocean floor. Its walls are built from crystallized whale songs, and its towers reach up through layers of water toward the distant surface, where sunlight creates patterns of moving beauty that few earthbound eyes ever witness. The architecture of Ryujin's palace defies earthly understanding of how structures can exist beneath crushing oceanic pressure. The buildings flow and shift like living water while maintaining perfect stability. Rooms expand and contract according to the needs of their occupants, demonstrating the fluid nature of reality in the deepest spiritual dimensions. The gardens surrounding the Dragon King's palace bloom with sea anemones that open like flowers in response to his presence. Coral formations grow in mathematical patterns that reveal the hidden geometries underlying all natural beauty. Kelp forests sway in choreographed dances that tell the history of the world through movement. The servants who attend Ryujin in his underwater realm include every form of sea creature elevated to divine status through long association with draconic wisdom. Octopi, whose intelligence rivals that of human philosophers. Whales, whose songs carry memories of the Earth's earliest days. Dolphins, whose playfulness conceals profound understanding of the connections between joy and spiritual truth. The sea turtles that serve as Ryujin's messengers carry on their shells the maps of all ocean currents and the locations of every treasure that has ever been lost beneath the waves. These ancient navigators move between the underwater realm and the surface world, bearing communications that only the wisest human recipients can properly interpret. The pearls that form in oysters throughout Ryujin's domain are not mere organic gems but crystallized drops of draconic wisdom. Each pearl contains a specific teaching about the relationship between pressure and beauty, about how consciousness can transform the irritations of existence into objects of transcendent loveliness. The storms that Ryujin can summon are not expressions of arbitrary power, but cosmic weather patterns that serve purposes beyond human understanding. Typhoons clear stagnant energies from both atmosphere and human consciousness. The winds and waves of dragon-sent tempests wash away what has become corrupted, making space for fresh growth. The tsunamis that occasionally result from Ryujin's movements represent the awesome power of natural forces that cannot be controlled by human will, but can be understood through proper spiritual development. The Dragon King's waves teach respect for powers greater than individual desire, while demonstrating the cosmic law that energy-seeking expression cannot be permanently contained. The fishermen who encounter Ryujin during their ocean journeys often receive gifts of magical fishing nets that never tear and always return full of exactly the fish needed to feed waiting families. These blessed implements represent the abundance that flows naturally to consciousness, aligned with, rather than opposed to, natural law. The pearls that Ryujin sometimes gives to worthy humans possess healing powers that can cure diseases, restore youth, and even bring the dead back to life. But these miraculous gifts come with responsibilities that test the recipient's wisdom. Power to heal others requires the spiritual maturity to use such abilities in service of universal rather than personal welfare. The underwater visits that heroes sometimes make to Ryujin's palace occur in time that flows differently from earthly duration. A single day spent in the Dragon King's realm might equal years in the surface world. This temporal distortion teaches that consciousness operating at deeper levels experiences time as fluid rather than fixed. The banquets held in Ryujin's palace feature delicacies that exist only in the deepest spiritual dimensions. Sea vegetables that grow in gardens tended by mermaid spirits, fruits from underwater trees that bear nourishment for the soul rather than mere physical sustenance, wine pressed from kelp grapes that induce visions of cosmic truth. The entertainment provided at these divine feasts includes performances by sea spirits whose dancing creates the patterns of waves and whose singing generates the sounds that dolphins use to communicate across vast oceanic distances. These underwater performances reveal that all natural phenomena carry within them elements of conscious artistry and divine expression. The marriage between Ryujin's daughter and mortal heroes who visit the underwater realm represents the union of human consciousness with the deeper wisdom of natural forces. These unions produce children who possess both earthly understanding and oceanic insight, bridging the gap between surface awareness and the profound knowledge that dwells in the depths. The magical items that Ryujin bestows upon deserving visitors to his palace include robes that never get wet, allowing their wearers to walk beneath the ocean as easily as on dry land. Swords that can cut through any substance, including the bonds of karma that tie consciousness to unwanted circumstances. Mirrors that reveal the true nature of whatever they reflect. The price that humans sometimes pay for visiting Ryujin's underwater paradise is the discovery that earthly time has passed more rapidly than expected during their absence. Heroes return to find that generations have lived and died while they feasted in timeless realms. This temporal displacement teaches lessons about the relationship between spiritual experience and physical existence. The longing that humans who have visited the Dragon King's realm often feel upon returning to ordinary life reflects the difficulty consciousness experiences when it must return to limited awareness after tasting unlimited possibility. The memory of oceanic vastness makes earthly concerns seem small and temporary by comparison. The tidal pools that form along rocky Japanese coastlines serve as windows into Ryujin's underwater realm. Children who play in these miniature oceans sometimes catch glimpses of tiny dragons and sea spirits who serve the great king in scaled-down versions of his cosmic court. The whirlpools that appear in certain areas of the ocean mark places where Ryujin's palace connects most directly to the surface world. These spinning water formations create portals through which properly prepared consciousness can descend to the deepest levels of spiritual understanding. The offerings that fishermen make to Ryujin before embarking on dangerous voyages include sake poured into the waves and flowers cast upon the water's surface. These gifts acknowledge the Dragon King's authority over all oceanic travel and request his protection for those whose livelihood depends upon his benevolence. The shrines dedicated to Ryujin along Japan's extensive coastline often feature dragon statues whose eyes seem to follow the movement of tides. These sacred sites serve as communication points where human prayers can reach the Dragon King's attention and where his blessings can flow most easily into the surface world. The festivals honoring Ryujin typically occur during seasons when the ocean's power is most evident. Spring celebrations acknowledge the Dragon King's role in bringing rain that nourishes rice crops. Autumn ceremonies express gratitude for safe passage through typhoon season and abundant harvests from both land and sea. The meditation practices associated with Ryujin's teachings focus on developing the fluid consciousness that can adapt to changing circumstances without losing essential identity. Practitioners learn to flow like water while maintaining the purposeful direction that carries rivers inevitably toward their oceanic destination. The breathing techniques taught by Ryujin's priests involve learning to extract life force energy from the moisture in the air. Advanced practitioners can sustain themselves indefinitely in underwater environments by absorbing oxygen directly from the surrounding water through spiritual rather than physical processes. The healing traditions connected to the Dragon King utilize the therapeutic properties of seawater, sea plants, and marine-derived medicines. Practitioners understand that the ocean contains healing potential for every ailment that can affect consciousness incarnated in physical form. The weather wisdom preserved in Ryujin's teachings enables fishermen and sailors to read the subtle signs that predict storms, favorable winds, and optimal conditions for oceanic travel. This knowledge comes not from mere observation, but from spiritual attunement to the Dragon King's intentions and moods. The pearls of wisdom that Ryujin offers to sincere spiritual seekers cannot be grasped by grasping hands, but only received by consciousness that has learned the patience of deep waters. These teachings reveal themselves gradually, like layers of sediment settling in still pools where clarity emerges through stillness rather than agitation. The connection between Ryujin and the moon goddess reflects the cosmic relationship between oceanic tides and lunar cycles. The Dragon King's movements follow rhythms established by celestial forces, demonstrating how earthly powers serve larger cosmic patterns rather than operating independently. As Ryujin settles into his eternal guardianship of the waters that surround and sustain the Japanese islands, as his presence ensures that oceanic wisdom will always be available to consciousness seeking to understand the deeper currents of existence, we can rest in the knowledge that vast powers support and protect all life. Under the Dragon King's protection, every drop of water carries healing potential. Every tide brings opportunity for renewal and fresh beginning. Every storm teaches lessons about the relationship between destruction and creation, between endings that make space for new growth. The deep blue waters grow calm as Ryujin returns to his palace in the oceanic depths. From the cherry blossom groves where spring spirits dance in eternal celebration, another presence approaches with the gentle joy of seasonal renewal. This is the collective consciousness of the Sakura Kami, whose pink petals carry messages of beauty and impermanence. Through the cherry blossom groves that line the pathways of sacred Japan, the Sakura Kami approach. These are the collective spirits of spring renewal, the divine consciousness that inhabits every cherry tree and guides the miraculous transformation from bare winter branches to clouds of pink and white petals. Their presence brings the gentle wisdom of cycles that teach beauty and impermanence as twin aspects of the same profound truth. The Sakura Kami move like petals caught in warm spring breezes. Their forms shift between individual tree spirits and the collective consciousness that connects all cherry trees across the Japanese islands. Sometimes they appear as graceful maidens wearing kimono patterned with falling blossoms. Other times they manifest as the trees themselves, swaying in harmonious dance that celebrates the return of life after winter's long sleep. The arrival of the cherry blossom spirits marks the most beloved season in the Japanese spiritual calendar. The Sakura Kami bring not just visual beauty but emotional and spiritual renewal that touches every heart capable of appreciating the miracle of life emerging from apparent death. Their pink and white petals carry messages from the divine realm about the eternal nature of beauty that transcends all temporary forms. Each cherry tree serves as an individual shrine to these spring spirits. The Sakura Kami inhabit every branch, every bud, every petal that unfurls in response to warming sunlight and lengthening days. The trees become living temples where divine presence can be encountered directly through simple appreciation of natural beauty. The flowering process that transforms bare branches into clouds of blossoms represents the spiritual awakening that occurs when consciousness learns to trust the natural cycles of growth and renewal. The Sakura Kami teach that apparent endings are actually preparations for more magnificent beginnings than previous forms could have supported. The brief duration of cherry blossom season carries one of the most important teachings in Japanese spiritual philosophy. The petals bloom for only a few weeks before falling to create carpets of pink and white beneath the trees. This transience makes each moment of flowering infinitely precious rather than diminishing its value. The Hanami tradition of gathering beneath blooming cherry trees to appreciate their beauty creates temporary communities united by shared recognition of divine presence manifesting through natural splendor. These celebrations honor the Sakura Kami while teaching participants about the spiritual value of paying complete attention to present moment beauty. The picnics held under cherry trees during Hanami season become spiritual practices disguised as social gatherings. Sharing food in the presence of the blooming Sakura Kami transforms ordinary meals into communion celebrations. The falling petals bless every dish with reminders of life's precious fragility and extraordinary beauty. The poetry composed during cherry blossom season attempts to capture in words the inexpressible beauty that the Sakura Kami create through their annual manifestation. These verses become offerings to the spring spirits, artistic expressions of human gratitude for divine gifts that surpass all earthly treasures. The meditation practices associated with cherry blossom viewing focus on developing the presence of mind necessary to fully receive the teaching that the Sakura Kami offer through their brief but intense display of beauty. Practitioners learn to suspend the mental commentary that usually prevents complete appreciation of immediate experience. The tears that often accompany deep appreciation of cherry blossoms are not expressions of sadness, but recognition of beauty so profound that ordinary emotional responses become inadequate. The Sakura Kami awaken in human hearts the capacity for aesthetic experience that transcends the usual categories of pleasure and pain. The photograph and paintings created during cherry blossom season serve as attempts to preserve the ephemeral beauty that the Sakura Kami manifest. But the spring spirits teach that true appreciation cannot be captured or stored, but must be renewed through direct encounter with each season's unique expression of eternal principles. The sake offered to cherry trees during their flowering creates communion between human consciousness and the Sakura Kami who inhabit the blooming branches. This rice wine, when poured at the base of trees, carries prayers of gratitude upward through the root systems that connect all cherry trees in networks of underground communication. The falling petals that create carpets beneath cherry trees represent the generous nature of divine beauty that gives itself freely without expecting anything in return. The Sakura Kami teach through their falling blossoms that true spiritual wealth comes from sharing rather than hoarding whatever gifts consciousness has received. The wind that carries cherry petals in spiraling dances through the air becomes visible manifestation of the spring spirits moving through their domain. Each gust that lifts petals skyward carries with it the prayers and appreciation of human hearts touched by beauty too profound for words to contain. The children who play among falling cherry blossoms receive direct initiation into the mysteries of beauty and impermanence that will influence their spiritual development throughout their lives. The Sakura Kami use childhood wonder as the most effective doorway for transmitting their essential teachings. The elderly visitors who make special pilgrimages to famous cherry blossom viewing sites understand that each spring's display might be their last opportunity for such encounters. The Sakura Kami offer these senior pilgrims teachings about graceful acceptance of life's natural cycles while celebrating the accumulated beauty of many seasons' worth of appreciation. The artists who dedicate their careers to depicting cherry blossoms serve as priests and priestesses of the Sakura Kami, translating divine beauty into forms that can be shared with those unable to visit the actual trees. Their paintings and sculptures become secondary shrines where the spring spirit's presence can be encountered year-round. The festivals celebrating cherry blossom season throughout Japan create collective rituals that honor the Sakura Kami while building community connections around shared appreciation of natural beauty. These celebrations demonstrate how spiritual practice can emerge naturally from activities that bring joy and wonder rather than solemn obligation. The different varieties of cherry trees that bloom at slightly different times extend the Sakura Kami's teaching season from early spring through late spring. Each variety offers subtle variations in the basic lesson about beauty and impermanence, creating a curriculum of aesthetic education that unfolds gradually over several months. The night illumination of cherry trees during peak blooming creates opportunities for the Sakura Kami to demonstrate their beauty in different light conditions. The artificial lighting reveals aspects of their presence that daylight cannot show, teaching that divine beauty contains infinite depths that can be explored from countless perspectives. The cherry blossom viewing parties that continue late into the night demonstrate human determination to extract maximum appreciation from the brief season when the Sakura Kami manifest most visibly. These extended celebrations honor the spring spirit's generosity while acknowledging the preciousness of time spent in their presence. The comparison between cherry blossoms and human life that appears frequently in Japanese poetry and philosophy reflects the Sakura Kami's teaching that beauty and brevity enhance rather than diminish each other. The temporary nature of both human existence and cherry blooms makes each moment of flourishing infinitely valuable. The memorial plantings of cherry trees to honor deceased loved ones create lasting shrines where the Sakura Kami can continue to offer comfort and beauty to grieving hearts. These living monuments demonstrate how natural beauty can provide spiritual healing more effectively than human-created memorials. The international appreciation of cherry blossoms that has spread Japanese aesthetic principles throughout the world represents the Sakura Kami's influence expanding beyond their original island home. The spring spirit's teachings about beauty and impermanence offer wisdom that transcends cultural boundaries. The climate change concerns that threaten traditional cherry blossom timing create opportunities for the Sakura Kami to teach adaptability while maintaining essential identity. The spring spirits demonstrate how divine consciousness can adjust to changing conditions without losing its fundamental nature or abandoning its sacred purposes. The scientific study of cherry tree biology reveals the complex processes that create the simple beauty the Sakura Kami manifest each spring. This knowledge enhances rather than diminishes appreciation by showing how divine consciousness works through natural laws to create miraculous transformations. As the Sakura Kami settle into their eternal cycle of seasonal manifestation, as their presence ensures that beauty and renewal will return each spring to remind human consciousness of its own capacity for transformation, we can rest in the knowledge that divine aesthetics watches over all who appreciate the sacred dimension of natural beauty. Under the protection of the cherry blossom spirits, every moment of genuine appreciation becomes a form of prayer. Every recognition of beauty becomes communion with divine consciousness. Every acceptance of impermanence becomes wisdom that prepares the heart for deeper spiritual understanding. The petals continue to fall in gentle spirals as the Sakura Kami complete their annual teaching cycle. From the ancient forests where the oldest spirits dwell among trees that have witnessed centuries pass like seasons, another presence approaches. This is the collective wisdom of the Kodama, the tree spirits who hold the memory of the land itself. From the deepest heart of Japan's ancient forests, where sunlight filters through canopies that have sheltered centuries of growth and change, the Kodama emerge. These are the tree spirits, the ancient consciousness that inhabits the oldest and most sacred trees throughout the Japanese islands. Their presence brings the accumulated wisdom of forests that have watched civilizations rise and fall while remaining rooted in the eternal patience of natural cycles. The Kodama appear as ethereal beings whose forms shift between human-like spirits and the trees themselves. Sometimes they manifest as translucent figures with bark-like skin and hair that moves like branches stirred by forest breezes. Other times they reveal themselves as the living consciousness that animates ancient trunks and gives forests their sense of watchful presence. These tree spirits inhabit only the most venerable trees, those giants that have survived for hundreds or thousands of years through storms, droughts, fires, and the countless changes that mark the passage of time. The Kodama choose their dwelling places based not on species but on spiritual development. A tree must earn the honor of hosting these ancient spirits through longevity, wisdom, and service to the forest community. The forests where Kodama dwell pulse with an awareness that goes beyond individual tree consciousness. These woodlands become living temples where every path leads to encounter with the sacred. The intertwining canopies create cathedral spaces where filtered light carries the quality of stained glass illumination in natural sanctuaries. The silence of Kodama forests is not empty but pregnant with communication systems that operate below the threshold of human hearing. The tree spirits maintain constant dialogue through root networks that carry chemical messages, electromagnetic pulses, and forms of consciousness transfer that science is only beginning to discover. The ancient cedars that serve as primary homes for the most powerful Kodama have trunks so massive that teams of people linking hands cannot encircle them. These tree giants represent the accumulation of centuries of growth, the patient building of living architecture that creates habitat for countless other forms of life. The sacred ropes that mark trees inhabited by Kodama serve as warning and invitation simultaneously. These Shimenawa indicate that the tree is a dwelling place of spiritual power that must be approached with reverence. Casual visitors receive gentle discouragement, while sincere seekers find themselves welcomed into communion with ancient wisdom. The offerings left at the base of trees hosting Kodama include rice, sake, and flowers that acknowledge the tree spirit's role as guardians of forest ecosystems. These gifts represent human gratitude for the oxygen, shelter, medicine, and spiritual guidance that forests provide to all life on Earth. The whispers that visitors sometimes hear in Kodama forests are not mere wind through leaves, but the actual voices of tree spirits sharing fragments of their accumulated knowledge. These communications often come in languages older than human speech, conveying meaning through direct consciousness transfer rather than words. The healing presence that people experience in ancient forests reflects the Kodama's therapeutic influence on human consciousness. Tree spirits emanate vibrations that restore balance to minds disrupted by the artificial rhythms of modern civilization. Forest bathing becomes literal communion with healing consciousness. The protection that Kodama provide for their forest homes extends beyond the physical realm to include preservation of the spiritual ecosystems that support all forest life. These tree spirits defend sacred groves against both physical damage and spiritual pollution that would destroy the harmony essential for their continued existence. The longevity secrets that the Kodama possess come from their understanding of how to work with rather than against natural cycles. Tree spirits teach that endurance comes not from resistance to change, but from flexibility that allows growth while maintaining essential identity throughout all transformations. The seasonal changes that Kodama guide their trees through become teachings about the spiritual principles underlying all natural cycles. Spring growth represents consciousness expanding into new possibilities. Summer fullness shows the abundance that comes from patient development. Autumn color reveals the beauty that emerges when consciousness prepares for transformation. The winter dormancy that deciduous trees undergo under Kodama guidance demonstrates the wisdom of periodic withdrawal from active manifestation. Tree spirits teach that rest periods are not failures of productivity, but essential phases that allow deeper forms of development to occur below the surface of visible activity. The root systems that Kodama maintain create underground networks connecting individual trees into forest communities that share resources and information. These living internet systems demonstrate the spiritual principle that individual consciousness thrives when connected to collective wisdom rather than competing in isolation. The photosynthesis process that occurs in Kodama-inhabited trees becomes a spiritual practice that transforms sunlight into life energy while releasing oxygen as a gift to all breathing creatures. Tree spirits demonstrate how consciousness can nourish itself while simultaneously serving the welfare of all life. The wind patterns that move through Kodama forests carry more than air currents. These breezes transport chemical signals, pollen, seeds, and spiritual influences that maintain the complex relationships necessary for healthy forest ecosystems. Tree spirits orchestrate these communications to ensure optimal conditions for all forest inhabitants. The sacred groves where multiple Kodama dwell together create especially powerful spiritual environments where human consciousness can experience direct contact with natural wisdom that predates human civilization. These forest sanctuaries preserve knowledge about how to live in harmony with natural law. The woodworkers who harvest timber from trees that have housed Kodama understand that they are working with materials that carry spiritual as well as physical properties. Master craftsmen recognize tree spirits through the unusual qualities of wood that has been blessed by long-term Kodama inhabitation. The traditional building techniques that utilize Kodama-blessed wood create structures that maintain spiritual connections to their forest origins. Temples and shrines built from such materials continue to emanate the peaceful presence that tree spirits cultivated over centuries of growth and development. The meditation practices developed in Kodama forests focus on learning to perceive the slow rhythms of tree consciousness that operate on seasonal rather than daily cycles. Practitioners discover that slowing their awareness to match forest time opens access to forms of wisdom invisible to hurried consciousness. The healing traditions associated with Kodama knowledge utilize every part of trees as medicine for both physical and spiritual ailments. Bark, leaves, roots, and sap all carry therapeutic properties enhanced by the blessing of tree spirits who understand the connection between plant medicine and consciousness healing. The conservation efforts that protect ancient forests serve as contemporary expressions of traditional reverence for Kodama wisdom. Environmental activists who fight to preserve old-growth forests are unconsciously serving as priests and priestesses of the tree spirits, protecting sacred spaces where ancient wisdom continues to accumulate. The climate change challenges that threaten forest ecosystems worldwide create opportunities for Kodama to teach adaptation strategies that allow essential wisdom to survive through changing conditions. Tree spirits demonstrate how flexibility and cooperation can overcome threats that would overwhelm individual resistance. The children who grow up playing in forests where Kodama dwell receive early education in the principles of ecological consciousness that will influence their entire approach to life. Tree spirits serve as first teachers who introduce young minds to the reality of interconnection and interdependence. The urban forestry projects that bring trees into city environments carry with them the potential for Kodama presence in areas that have been separated from natural ecosystems. Tree spirits can establish new dwelling places in parks and gardens that provide sufficient space and reverence for their development. The scientific research that reveals the complexity of forest communication systems validates traditional knowledge about Kodama wisdom while opening new possibilities for understanding how tree consciousness operates. Modern discovery confirms ancient awareness of forest intelligence. The artistic works inspired by encounters with Kodama preserve and transmit tree spirit wisdom through human creative expression. Paintings, sculptures, poetry, and music become vehicles through which forest consciousness can communicate with urban populations separated from direct forest contact. The lumber industry practices that work in harmony with Kodama wisdom focus on selective harvesting that maintains forest health rather than clear cutting that destroys entire ecosystems. Sustainable forestry becomes a form of partnership with tree spirits rather than exploitation of forest resources. As the Kodama settle into their eternal role as guardians of forest wisdom and protectors of the ancient knowledge that trees accumulate through centuries of patient observation, we can rest in the understanding that natural intelligence watches over all ecosystems with wisdom older than human memory. Under the protection of tree spirits, every forest becomes a library of accumulated earth wisdom. Every ancient tree becomes a sage capable of teaching patience, endurance, and the art of growing slowly toward the light while remaining deeply rooted in supportive earth. The forest grows quiet as the Kodama return to their patient vigil within ancient trunks and spreading canopies. From all the sacred spaces we have visited, from mountain peaks and ocean depths, from bamboo groves and cherry orchards, the collective presence of all Japanese kami begins to converge for our final teaching about the harmony that connects all divine consciousness. As our journey through the mystical realms of Japan draws to its peaceful close, all the kami we have encountered begin to gather in the sacred space between sleeping and waking. Amaterasu's golden light mingles with Tsukuyomi's silver radiance. Susanoo's storm winds gentle into breezes that carry the fragrance of sakura blossoms. The wisdom of all Japanese spirits converges into a single teaching about the divine harmony that underlies all existence. The sacred mountains where we began our journey now reveal themselves as gathering places where all the kami come together in councils that govern the spiritual welfare of the Japanese islands. Mount Fuji's perfect cone serves as the central axis around which all other sacred energies revolve. The mountain's snow-covered peak catches and reflects the light of every divine presence. Amaterasu settles into her role as the benevolent mother whose radiant love encompasses all other kami. The sun goddess's warmth creates the conditions in which every other form of divine consciousness can flourish according to its unique nature. Her light reveals the beauty present in storm clouds and gentle mists, in ocean waves and forest shadows. Susanoo takes his place as the reformed warrior whose passionate energy now serves protective rather than destructive purposes. The storm god's winds carry the pollen that fertilizes flowers and the seeds that establish new forests. His lightning illuminates truth, and his thunder announces the arrival of beneficial change. Izanami emerges from her underworld realm to demonstrate that death and life are partners in the cosmic dance of eternal transformation. The great mother goddess shows how endings make space for beginnings more magnificent than what came before. Her presence teaches acceptance of change as the fundamental law of existence. Inari's foxes create networks of communication that connect all the scattered shrines throughout Japan into a single system of spiritual support. The rice deity's messengers carry prayers from remote mountain villages to great urban temples, ensuring that no sincere spiritual seeker remains isolated from divine guidance and blessing. The Tengu descend from their mountain peaks to serve as guardians of the sacred spaces where human consciousness can encounter divine truth directly. These warrior spirits protect pilgrims and practitioners who seek authentic spiritual development while discouraging those who approach sacred places with selfish or exploitative intentions. Kaguya-hime's lunar light bathes the entire landscape in silver radiance that reveals the beauty present in darkness as well as light. The Moon Princess teaches that some forms of wisdom can only be received during quiet moments of contemplation when the busy activities of daylight consciousness have settled into peaceful stillness. Ryujin's oceanic depths provide the foundation of stability upon which all island consciousness rests. The Dragon King's vast underwater realm represents the unconscious wisdom that supports all surface awareness. His tides regulate the rhythms of life on land through cycles that connect earthly existence to cosmic patterns. The Sakura Kami create cascades of pink and white petals that remind all observers of the beauty that emerges when consciousness learns to bloom fully while accepting the impermanent nature of all manifestations. The cherry blossom spirits teach that transience makes each moment of flowering infinitely precious. The Kodama maintain the living memory of the land itself through their patient inhabitation of ancient trees that have witnessed centuries of change while remaining rooted in eternal principles. These tree spirits preserve the accumulated wisdom of countless seasons of growth, rest, and renewal. All these divine beings work together in perfect harmony because each serves the same ultimate purpose despite their different methods and areas of specialization. The Japanese kami demonstrate that diversity of expression enhances rather than threatens unity when all participants remain dedicated to the welfare of the whole. The festivals that celebrate different kami throughout the Japanese year create a calendar of spiritual education that guides human consciousness through all the phases of natural and spiritual development. Spring festivals honor renewal and new beginning. Summer celebrations acknowledge abundance and full flowering. Autumn ceremonies express gratitude for harvest and preparation for rest. Winter observances embrace the wisdom of dormancy and inner development. The shrine architecture that provides dwelling places for various kami follows design principles that create harmony between human craftsmanship and natural beauty. Traditional Japanese buildings flow with the landscape rather than dominating it. They create spaces where divine presence can manifest while maintaining the simplicity that allows spiritual truth to reveal itself without distracting ornamentation. The tea ceremony that developed under kami influence becomes a meditation on the divine presence, accessible through complete attention to simple activities. The careful preparation of hot water and the reverent sharing of tea create sacred space where ordinary consciousness can encounter the extraordinary awareness that kami represent. The garden design traditions that emerged from kami worship demonstrate how human creativity can collaborate with natural forces to create beauty that serves both aesthetic and spiritual purposes. Japanese gardens become three-dimensional prayers, living mandalas that guide contemplation toward recognition of divine harmony present in all natural relationships. The martial arts that developed under Tengu guidance integrate physical training with spiritual discipline to create warriors who serve justice rather than personal ambition. These fighting systems teach that true strength comes from harmony with natural law rather than opposition to perceived enemies. The poetry traditions that attempt to capture kami wisdom in words create literary forms like haiku that compress cosmic understanding into brief verses capable of triggering enlightenment moments in prepared consciousness. These poems become verbal seeds of divine awareness planted in human language. The seasonal awareness that kami worship cultivates enables consciousness to remain synchronized with natural rhythms rather than becoming alienated from the cycles that govern all earthly existence. This attunement creates harmony between human activities and the larger patterns of cosmic development. The reverence for natural beauty that kami presence inspires generates attitudes of grateful appreciation that transform daily life into continuous spiritual practice. Every sunrise becomes Amaterasu's blessing. Every storm becomes Susanoo's teaching. Every flowering tree becomes a message from the Sakura Kami about the preciousness of temporary beauty. The community cooperation that shrine maintenance requires builds social bonds based on shared commitment to values that transcend individual self-interest. Villages and neighborhoods united by common reverence for local kami develop the mutual support systems that allow human communities to thrive in harmony with natural environments. The craftsman traditions that create objects for use in kami worship understand that the spiritual quality of intention affects the spiritual properties of finished products. Master artisans become priests whose devotion transforms raw materials into instruments capable of facilitating divine encounter. The healing practices that draw upon kami wisdom utilize every aspect of natural environment as potential medicine for body, mind, and spirit. Hot springs blessed by water kami become therapeutic sanctuaries. Forests inhabited by tree spirits become healing environments. Mountain air carries the blessing of peak-dwelling kami. The agricultural techniques that developed through cooperation with land kami create farming systems that enhance rather than exhaust soil fertility. Rice cultivation becomes spiritual practice that demonstrates how human effort can collaborate with natural forces to create abundance that serves the needs of entire communities. The meditation practices taught at shrines throughout Japan focus on developing the receptive awareness necessary for direct kami encounter. These contemplative techniques quiet the mental activity that usually prevents recognition of divine presence already available in every moment of ordinary experience. As all the kami of Japan gather in the peaceful space that bridges waking and sleeping consciousness, their collective presence creates a field of divine harmony that encompasses every form of awareness capable of recognizing sacred beauty. The spirits of mountains and oceans, of storms and gentle rain, of flowering trees and ancient forests, all unite in demonstrating that existence itself is divine when perceived with properly prepared consciousness. The great teaching that emerges from our journey through Japan's mystical realms is that the sacred is not separate from the ordinary, but is the extraordinary depth present within every natural phenomenon when encountered with reverence and complete attention. Under the eternal protection of all Japanese kami, every moment of genuine appreciation becomes communion with divine consciousness. Every act of reverence for natural beauty becomes worship of the sacred presence that creates and sustains all existence. Every recognition of interdependence becomes wisdom that prepares consciousness for the direct encounter with divine harmony. The sacred islands settle into peaceful rest as all their kami spirits maintain their eternal vigil over the land they have blessed with divine presence. The mist rises from valleys where ancient spirits dwell. The stars shine down through clear mountain air. And in the gentle space between day and night, between earthly awareness and divine consciousness, all beings can find the rest that comes from understanding their place within the eternal harmony of existence itself. Sleep comes naturally now, blessed by the wisdom of gods and spirits who have shared their deepest teachings through the sacred landscape of Japan. In dreams, we may visit again the mountain peaks and ocean depths, the bamboo groves and cherry orchards where divine consciousness awaits all who approach the mystery of existence with wonder, reverence, and the open heart that recognizes the sacred presence dwelling within all life.